It's time to put the good in your morning. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Today, police seize over $150,000 worth of THC products from a Miami dispensary. We'll have that story coming up.
Only here, as in days of dry weather and sunshine. We had to wait long enough, but we'll take you into Independence Day weekend from the Skywatch Weather Center.
And two of the richest men on the planet hope to be the first one to leave the planet. We'll have the race between Branson and Bezos coming up. KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 starts now.
The four states' most watched news starts now.
Thanks for joining us for the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. I'm Tanya Bach. Authorities released more details on the shutdown of a Miami, Oklahoma medical marijuana facility. Authorities closed the underground dispensary on Main Street for not having the correct licenses. The Miami police chief says police seized between $150,000 and $200,000 worth of THC products. The Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Authority says the facility had been sold and the new owners did not get the proper licenses. The facility says a system error at OMMA kept them from getting their license, but that they're working on resolving the issue and plan to reopen.
Medical marijuana license and that legal paperwork through the state, you're just an illegal drug dealer. And that's kind of the line we're dealing with to see where they're at on licensing, if it's civil, criminal, where exactly that's going to fall out.
The OMMA says there are no indications that there were issues with the product the facility was selling, but says they'll test samples out of an abundance of caution. Joplin police say a woman was robbed near the Messenger Towers in Joplin and then dragged by a vehicle from that site for about 2 blocks all the way to 4th and Main. It happened just before 1 yesterday afternoon. Police say the robber is still on the loose, traveling in a dark sedan. The victim was taken to the hospital and at last report listed in stable condition. A new Missouri law aims to better protect survivors of domestic violence. It was signed by Governor Parson on Tuesday. The law extends orders of protection for up to a lifetime in extreme situations, includes pets and protection orders, and expands the definition of stalking to include technology like GPS devices and social media, as well as the use of third parties.
The comfort that this can provide is tremendous. Now, it is a piece of paper, but it does give our victims something further. It's not something that they have to continuously fight. It allows for hearings so that there can be a story told.
The law goes into effect August 28th. Missouri lawmakers renew Medicaid funding on Wednesday. Despite that, protesters took to the streets in Jefferson City calling for Medicaid expansion. Voters approved it in 2020, but the General Assembly failed to assign funding for it. Last month, a Cole County court ruled the initiative unconstitutional. Yesterday, supporters of the expansion protested outside the governor's mansion, calling for the governor, Mike Parson, to take action. The Missouri Supreme Court will hear the case for Medicaid expansion July 13th. Tens of thousands of Oklahoma residents are now covered by health insurance as a result of Medicaid expansion in the Sooner State. The voter-backed expansion took effect yesterday. As a result, Oklahoma is reaping federal bonus payments and staking a central place in the political debate over extending the program in every state. More than 123,000 low-income Oklahomans already have been approved for coverage in a state where nearly 15% of the population is uninsured. According to the nonprofit Kaiser Family Foundation, Oklahoma's uninsured rate is the second highest in the nation, behind Texas. 18 to 20-year-olds can now apply for concealed weapon permits in Kansas. Governor Laura Kelly vetoed a bill lowering the age from 21 in May, but lawmakers overrode that veto. The law goes into effect as of yesterday. Supporters say younger people should be able to carry hidden weapons if they are properly trained. They point out people can serve in the military at 18 years old. Critics note the law does not require training to get the permit. In the days leading up to the 4th of July, we talk a lot about safety. Usually it's about how to safely handle fireworks and prevent fires. This year, due to the recent heavy rainfall, GRDA officials are stressing water safety. First, watch out for floating debris. Heavy rains can carry driftwood and other debris into the water. If you're boating, watch your wake. The higher lake levels can lead to higher wakes, which can be damaging, and stay away from floodgates and spillways as they could be open to maintain lake levels. The GRDA also says you should always wear a life jacket when out on the water and check weather conditions before you go out. Well, meet the latest food trend making its way around social media. Now you might think you know what a hot dog looks like. That's all going to change thanks to one butcher shop's unique and clever idea, round hot dogs. Innovation from Rastelli's meat delivery service based in New Jersey came to life after the company had gotten numerous requests for pre-sliced hot dogs. Rastelli's hoped the idea would help people hold more condiments on their dogs and prevent choking hazards. Company ships nationwide, so be sure to put your order in for your next barbecue, and don't forget to buy hamburger buns only to go along. You know, this is kind of a great idea because we like to make hamburgers and hot dogs, and I always have a few buns of each left. And it's not uncommon for me to make what's called I call it a butt bun out of a hot dog bun to turn it into a hamburger bun. It just has a big crease in the middle. This would eliminate that. It takes away from the tradition of the hot dog, though.
Why don't you take your complaint up with the bread industry and ask them why they don't match the number?
It wouldn't matter because my family, my kids are indecisive on whether they're going to use a bun or just eat the hot dog by itself. So it comes out differently every time.
It would take away from a family tradition then.
Yes. Or we could have hot dog shaped hamburgers. Oh, that would be an all beef dog.
I was going to say, if you like the round hot dog there, and that's what you're going to do, just so you have matching buns, you're essentially running the hot dog bun salesman out of business.
Even though they're usually from the same company.
I'm just looking out for him and her.
Always up for new things? What flavor of ketchup are we going to put on this?
Don't use ketchup. Grew up next to a ketchup farm / factory. Remind me to tell you why I don't eat Oreos someday.
Okay.
Wise woman once told me, "I can't believe you just told me that story. I'll never eat an Oreo again." I said, well.
But you know what? Despite whether you like hot dogs or hamburgers, you're going to relish in this next thing. Our forecast.
I don't eat relish either.
Okay, you were supposed to go with my pun. Relish in our weekend forecast, Michael.
It's going to be gorgeous. How about that? Temperatures in the mid to high 80s, a whole lot of sunshine. And we'll come back. I'm going to break down some flood warnings that we still have when we return.
All right, up next, Prince Harry and Prince William unveil a new Princess Diana statue. We'll have the public's reaction. And the Delta variant is on its way to becoming the dominant COVID strain. We have what you need to know up next. Researchers in Spain make links between eating organic food and higher levels of intelligence in children. The research team, working alongside Barcelona's Institute for Global Health, say kids who eat organic raised food had better fluid intelligence in solving reasoning problems and working memory, retaining new information in the short term. They add fast food diet hurts academic achievement. Researchers say organic diets are richer in fatty acids, vitamins, and antioxidants. Scientists studied about 1,300 children across Europe and also considered environmental factors. Pandemic lockdowns sparked an increase in firework-related deaths and injuries. A new report from the Consumer Product Safety Commission says injuries or deaths related to the colorful explosives increased 50% in 2020, noting at least 18 people died from firework-related incidents and more than 15,000 people were treated for firework-related injuries. Experts claim the spike could be due to more at-home pyrotechnic displays after the coronavirus pandemic and restrictions canceled local professional shows. Consumer Product Safety Commission urges people to follow all safety protocol before lighting their own fireworks. Delta is spreading across America on its way to becoming the dominant COVID-19 strain in the next few weeks. Vaccination plea continues, but what about people who can't get vaccinated? like children younger than 12 years old. As Britt Conway explains, medical experts say there are a few questions parents should be asking themselves right now.
I'm concerned about the Delta variant.
And now Delta has been detected in all 50 states and Washington, D.C. For people who've been vaccinated,
There is good evidence that you have a high degree of protection against this virus.
but for those who aren't,
Then you are in trouble. This is a serious threat, and we're seeing it spread among unvaccinated people.
So what about kids under 12? There's no approved vaccine for them yet. Health experts say it depends.
Is there a lot of virus spreading in your community? Are vaccination rates high or low in your community? Are you in a job, for example, or work setting where you're exposed to a lot of people who are unvaccinated and who may be carrying the virus and who are unmasked?
Depending on your answers.
I think it's very reasonable for parents to consider wearing a mask.
And for kids,
If your kids are old enough to wear masks, then they should when they're indoors, at least until we can get our arms around this Delta variant. This requires parents and really anyone to have some situational awareness of what their region looks like, what their state looks like, what their county looks like in terms of vaccination rates and Delta variants.
as for when there could be an approved vaccine for kids younger than 12,
An optimistic forecast is by the fall, but it may not be to the end of the year potentially.
until then, it's all about vigilance against the virus.
The virus wins when we let our guard down, when we take our eye off the ball.
I'm Britt Conway reporting.
About 20% of eligible people polled who have yet to get vaccinated said the main reason is because they believe the vaccine is too new. A smaller number of people in the survey cited other reasons like concerns about side effects or the distrust of the government. Well, scaled down replica of the Statue of Liberty is retracing the journey that its big sister made over a century ago. 9.3-foot statue left a museum in Paris and will be on loan in New York City for the next decade. This weekend, the replica has big plans as it'll be celebrating in Washington, D.C. for the 4th of July. That's so cool.
That is cool. It's what did you say? It's 10 feet?
Yeah, little mini lady.
Yeah. What's the Statue of Liberty?
Hey, who's up there?
It's a bunch of rich people trying to get into outer space.
It's called the Race to Space. Yeah, that story's coming up.
What Tate, was that wrong?
We're talking about Our Lady.
That was a bunch of rich people trying to get to outer space. That's what that was.
You were. Yep.
Oh, that's a cool shot in the rain. You say it was 10 feet?
Yes.
So you would, what's a real one? 300? You need 30 of them. You stack 30 of them up to get to the real one. But you can do anything with a camera. There we go. All right, live look outside of Television City. We are off to a gorgeous, gorgeous Friday start. We are done with the rain. Everything's staying down to the south, up to the mid-Atlantic. All we have to do is sit back, relax, and let the water recede. Because with that being said, we still do have a flood warning for the Neosho River all the way from the gauge just on the other side of Parsons, running down to the Oklahoma-Kansas state line through Miami and Commerce, Vernon County, in southwest Missouri, close to Nevada. You got the Marmonton, the Osage, the Little Osage, and then we have a county. Those are river specific. We still have a county-wide one for Allen County. Hopefully we can lift that at noon, but even yesterday when it wasn't torrential rain, it gives you an idea how much rain that Allen County had to go through all the way back through the other, Friday, late last week. There's a live look over 7th and Range Line. We can tilt and just show us a little light cloud cover out there in the distance, but tell you what, it's not going to slow the sun down at all. As we sit at 70 right now, and eventually we're going to work up into the mid-80s. Temperatures ranging really from about 67 to 72, so not a wide variety by any means, and 80s on the horizon here, very close to that by the time we get to the noon hour, topping out about 84, 85. But here's the important part, is all the rain stays down to the south on future track. We have no weather concerns as we head into what's going to be a beautiful Independence Day weekend. If you got outdoor plans, you are in luck. Also, too, by the time it's fireworks time each night, temperature's going to be ever so comfortable in the high 60s and low 70s. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
At Audible Rent.
Two mega-rich businessmen are shooting for the stars. Kevin Cork has more on who is competing to be the first billionaire with a space company to ride their rockets into space.
The race to space is heating up as Virgin Galactic founder Sir Richard Branson aims to beat Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos to space. Bezos was originally geared to be the first billionaire with a space company to head to the stars on board one of his rockets, previously announcing a launch date of July 20th. But Branson making headlines Thursday, scheduling his departure for the final frontier for July 11th. This will mark the first time Branson's craft will fly with a full crew, consisting of 2 pilots and 4 mission specialists.
Astronaut 001, Richard Branson. I'll be evaluating the customer spaceflight experience.
Branson says he's going along to test out the onboard amenities and what it'll be like for his future customers to fly into space. The FAA approved Virgin Galactic to officially transport passengers into the galaxy last week.
We're going to fly you up into space on the very first flight.
Meanwhile, Jeff Bezos is taking some special guests of his own on his trip. Besides his brother, Bezos is extending an invitation to Wally Funk, an 82-year-old pilot who was one of 13 women to ever complete NASA's astronaut training program back in the 1960s.
I can hardly wait.
And if you too want to head to infinity and beyond, you may soon get your chance, with Virgin Galactic announcing it will begin offering commercial trips to space sometime next year.
This is so exciting. Well, Wally Funk will be the oldest person to ever launch into space, beating out the late John Glenn, who set the record in 1998 when he flew on the Discovery at the age of 77. We'll be back after this. It's time to honor today's four-state hero, Captain Frank Miller, who served in the U.S. Air Force from 1966 to 1972. Captain was stationed in San Antonio, Wyoming, and Newfoundland. A native of Pittsburgh, Kansas, we thank you, Captain Frank Miller, our four-state hero. CDC is warning that new COVID cases in the U.S. have jumped by more than 10% since last week. The dangerous Delta variant accounts for about 1 in 4 of those cases. David Begnaud reports from Arkansas.
Numbers are driven in part by spikes in new cases across the South. Arkansas just saw its highest one-day spike since February.
People who are unvaccinated are at significant risk of a virus that spreads so efficiently.
With that Delta variant now present in all 50 states, Dr. Anthony Fauci says it is highly contagious for parents and their children.
Please get vaccinated because we have a highly effective countermeasure against this Delta variant.
Nationwide, barely 1 in 5 12 to 15-year-olds are fully vaccinated. And with school in some states opening next month, this week marks the critical deadline for parents to vaccinate their eligible kids. It takes 5 weeks to be fully vaccinated with Pfizer's shot, and that is the only one authorized for people as young as 12.
If we, want to end this pandemic, the children need to get vaccinated also.
Nico and Sophia Chavez are part of a Pfizer trial that's testing the vaccine on children 5 to 11.
All done. That's it.
That's it.
People say, well, the children don't get that sick. They're not as infectious as others. But in fact, this disease has caused more deaths in children than the flu does.
Here in Calhoun County, Arkansas, the vaccination rate is among the lowest in the state. Victoria Carmier works at the town feed store and says she's had people buying a gel meant for deworming horses that they're using to treat COVID. So they'll take a horse gel.
Yes, and put it on a cracker.
And put it on a cracker, but they won't take a vaccine that's undergone clinical trials.
Right, ain't that crazy?
She's talking about the drug ivermectin. It's designed for horses, not humans. Humans have tried it and they've wound up in the hospital. It is not designed to treat COVID. And that's why the FDA warns, don't do it. David Begnaud, CBS News, Arkansas.
Another half hour of news and weather is just ahead. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14, why buying a new car could be more difficult because of a microchip shortage. And this weekend, the city of Carthage commemorates the Battle of Carthage. Stick around for the full story of what happened on that fateful day 160 years ago. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. We'll be right back.
4 states' most watched news starts now.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. It's currently 7:30. Let's take a look at today's top stories. Law enforcement shuts down a Miami, Oklahoma medical marijuana facility. The underground dispensary in Miami is shut down for not having the correct licenses. The Miami police chief says they seized between $150,000 and $200,000 worth of THC products. The Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Authority says the facility was sold and the new owners did not get the proper licenses. They were operating as a dispensary, grower, and processor. The OMMA says there are no indications that there were issues with the product the facility was selling, but says they'll take samples out of an abundance of caution. Underground Dispensary says they applied for a license, but a system error at the OMMA kept their applications from going through. Joplin police say a woman was robbed near Messenger Towers in Joplin and then dragged by a vehicle from that site for about 2 blocks, all the way to 4th and Main. Happened just before 1 yesterday afternoon. Police say the robber is still on the loose, traveling in a dark sedan. The victim was taken to the hospital and at last report was listed in stable condition. A new Missouri law aims to better protect victims of domestic violence. It was signed by Governor Parson on Tuesday. The law extends orders of protection for up to a lifetime in extreme situations, includes pets in protection orders, and expands the definition of stalking to include technology like GPS devices and social media, as well as the use of third parties. The law goes into effect August 28th. Missouri lawmakers renew Medicaid funding on Wednesday. Despite that, protesters took to the streets in Jefferson City calling for Medicaid expansion. Voters approved it in 2020. The General Assembly failed to assign funding for it. Last month, the Cole County Court ruled the initiative unconstitutional. Yesterday, supporters of the expansion protested outside the governor's mansion, calling for Governor Mike Parson to take action. The Missouri Supreme Court will hear the case for Medicaid expansion July 13th. Missouri drivers will pay the highest price for gas they've seen in years. The statewide gas price average in Missouri is $2.81 a gallon. That's the highest it's been since 2014. It's 93 cents more than this time last year. Joplin drivers are catching a bit of a breakthrough. Joplin has the lowest prices in the state at around $2.74 a gallon on average. 18 to 20-year-olds can now apply for concealed weapon permits in Kansas. Governor Laura Kelly vetoed a bill lowering the age from 21 in May, but lawmakers overrode that veto. The law went into effect yesterday. Supporters say younger people should be able to carry hidden weapons if they are properly trained. They point out people can serve in the military at 18 years old.
Don't matter if they're 18, 26, 86, it's part of our right. If they can go over there and shoot and defend our country and they can run guns and do everything they need to do in the military, and then I think they have the right to do it here on our own land.
Critics note the law does not require training to get the permit. 3 large wildfires are burning in Northern California, forcing thousands of people from their homes. The fires come as the state is dealing with triple-digit temperatures. One man says he even used a garden hose to spray outside his wooden home in hopes of protecting it.
Fire comes here, it helps to prevent from burning my house down. So if they keep it wet, maybe the flames wouldn't get on the side.
Some say the fires bring back memories of last year's wildfire season, which burned through more than 6,500 square miles.
Pacific Northwest all the way down to the West Coast. They just can't get a break. As compared to us, we can't get a dry day. That changes for us today.
Yay!
Live look from 7th and Rangeline, where we're off to a gorgeous Friday start. Temperature's been pretty consistent. It's still at 70 degrees right now. A little bit muggy when you walk outside. Humidity's at 97%. 70s in Miami, Neosho, and Carthage. 72s in Chanute and Parsons and Oswego. Now, as we were talking about, no reprieve for the West Coast. There's absolutely no rain popping up right there. Our rain sank so far to the south that now it rolls up through the southeastern portion of the United States, and towards the mid-Atlantic. But with that being said, even though we're dry today, we still do have a flood warning for the Neosho River into the weekend. You'll notice the key factor here, we've been able to lift the flood warning through portions of Labette County. So that's excellent. Now, the Marmaton, Osage, Little Osage, those are going to run to the weekend. And then we also have a county-wide one for Allen County. But the severe thunderstorm risk map keeps us well out of the fray. Temperatures into the 80s later on today. We will take that with plenty of sunshine. Future track leaves us void of any precipitation. Everything rolls down to the south, and that sets us up for what's going to be a perfect 4th of July weekend. Mid-80s, sunny skies, overnight temperatures for fireworks, going to be in the 70s. Can't beat it. Be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this. This morning on the KOAM News Now Facebook page in our morning Insta poll, United States Attorney General Merrick Garland ordering a temporary halt of federal executions. Our question to you this morning is, do you think there should be a federal death penalty? Right now, 80% of you chiming in with a yes. Poll's still open. You can make your vote heard each and every morning by going to KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. Now over to Tanya in Studio K.
All right, well, Princess Diana touched countless lives during her years of service and philanthropy. Now, the impact of that work prompted her sons, Princes William and Harry, to commission a statue of her in 2017, 20 years after her death and before their royal rift. Stephanie Bennett has more as the statue was unveiled to the public yesterday.
In honor of her life and legacy, a statue of Princess Diana was unveiled at London's Kensington Palace, her former home, on what would have been her 60th birthday. The bronze statue depicts the late princess wearing a dress evoking the final period of her life, a time when she was devoted to her humanitarian work. It also shows her connection with people, with Diana's likeness surrounded by 3 children. Helping youth around the world was a passion of the preschool teacher turned princess.
She was such a friendly and gregarious person, and she had a particular warmth for children. And I think it also just sort of in many ways alludes to her humanitarian work and shows that, you know, she was a great comfort.
The brief ceremony was low-key because of the pandemic, attended by her sons, Princes William and Harry, along with other close family members. Absent were Queen Elizabeth, her ex-husband, Prince Charles, and the brothers' wives, Kate and Meghan. But all eyes were on the princes, together in public for only the second time since their once tight relationship became strained.
Both did a very good united front today, but what I would say is you could sense the friction, particularly, I felt, from Prince William.
United by the memory of their mom, they supported the project to honor Diana's life of service. They made no remarks but released a joint statement reading in part, quote, "We remember her love, strength, and character, qualities that made her a force for good around the world, changing countless lives for the better." Diana's statue is now a lasting symbol of her philanthropy and all the lives she touched.
She's an immortal soul, and she was very special. And now it's all in stone now, in a statue for her.
Well, the princes said they miss their mother every day, but hope the statue will be seen forever as a symbol of her life and her legacy. We'll be right back after this. The auto industry is still dealing with the lack of necessary computer chips. It has consumers perplexed and car dealers agitated over lack of new car inventory. Car makers continue to deal with production delays, and Ford is shuttering 8 plants in July and August as the pandemic eases and the economy returns and demand revs up, but enough new product isn't there now. That's also raising pre-owned vehicle prices, and the auto industry may be in for increased heartburn all the way into next year.
My lot used to be double packed. Now my whole lot is empty. I was selling 600-700 cars. Now I'm down, new cars. Now I'm down to 250-260 cars.
The Senate voted 68-32 for more than $50 billion for domestic computer chip production to aid against dependence on overseas chips. Good idea. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office expects the U.S. budget deficit to hit $3 trillion this year. The deficit increased due to unprecedented federal spending in response to the pandemic. If the prediction is right, that would put 2021's deficit at triple the shortfall of 2019. But about $130 billion lower than last year. 2020's deficit was a record $3.12 $1 to $9 trillion because of massive relief and a huge decrease in economic activity. While school kids may get stickers for good performance, parents may face sticker shock this year in back-to-school prices. Man, accounting company KPMG says that cost will go up to send your kids back to school this year. KPMG's survey says the average spending per student is expected to be as much as $270 compared with $250 last year. Parents of preschoolers will pay out 32% more, and moms and dads of college students will dole out about 13% more. Inflation, because of supply and demand issues from the coronavirus pandemic, is a key culprit. KPMG strategist says there will be fewer coupon offers or discounts this year. Investors will be waiting for the Labor Department's monthly jobs report out later this morning. Economists expect about 700,000 jobs added in June. That would be an improvement over May's job report, when 559,000 jobs were added. We'll be right back with more after this, but first, let's take a look at the market prices before the opening bell. So now Dish allows 160 years ago, on April 12th, the Civil War began when the Confederacy fired on Fort Sumter in South Carolina. Now, a few months later, on July 5th, the first full-scale battle of the war. It happened right here in the 4 states. For our next staycation, KOAM photojournalist Liam Mandelbaum takes us to the Battle of Carthage Civil War Museum, where history comes to life.
Is really an important thing for people to learn about American history. You got to know where you came from and who you are before you know where you're going and what you're going to do, really.
This is the Battle of Carthage Civil War Museum, considered to be one of, if not the first major land battle of the Civil War.
I flat out encourage school groups that come and visit to remember one thing in particular, and that is we don't ever want to do this to our country again. That's the main deal. There was so much shooting going on that day. People bring things in frequently that they find even in their own backyards. Most of the fighting took place in a rural setting, which is now along what we call Civil War Road. That began 9 miles north of town that morning of July 5th. You had 1,100 Union troops running into about 6,000 of their foes in the Missouri State Guard under the governor himself, who was trying to take the state into the Confederacy. You know, it's hard to believe something like that took place in a nice, quiet little community like this, but by golly, it did, and and then it got worse later in the war.
Well, it's just all Carthage history. We got people from all over the world here doing Route 66 coming in here visiting.
So that people can kind of relax and reflect upon this serious time of history. And it's gone from sort of a little amateur place to a pretty professional, nice museum here.
Museum is open to visitors Tuesday through Sunday. We'll have information on the hours and location of the museum on our morning show page at KOAMnewsnow.com. We'll be right back.
Coming off of Tanya's story telling us about the anniversary of the Battle of Carthage, not lost on the calendar is the stark reality that that anniversary is July 5th. 85 years, almost to the day prior to that, is when the Second Continental Congress would sign the Declaration of Independence, July 4th, 1776, in Philadelphia. Yet it would only take 85 years for our country to find itself mired in a civil war. But once again, it is all part of our history, and important that we point out anniversaries like that, especially since we have such wonderful, wonderful historical artifacts for people to go back and learn about our country's history, and do so right here in the 4 states. But once again, 85 years and 1 day later, after the signing of the Declaration of Independence, we would have the Civil War Battle of Carthage. That being said, let's go ahead and push on into our Independence Day weekend on this 2021 year. Live look outside of Television City, where right now we're sitting at temperatures at 7th and Range Line at 70 degrees. We haven't seen much of a bump up as of yet, even though we've had plenty of sunshine so far. You'll also notice it may be a little bit muggy outside. We just saw that humidity drop. That's our current update. We sit at 93% right now. But the key factor as well is that very bottom line. Whenever you see the barometer and the pressure is on the rise, that is a great indicator of sunny skies and a whole lot of blue void of any clouds. And that's what we deserve coming off of all the rain that we've had dating back to Friday. We have seen Iola now bump up to 69. That was actually the low spot earlier, ranged as low as 65. 71 in Neosho Anderson, at 72 in Miami. And how about Welch? Bump it up to 74. And we'll get to Nevada in just a second, where it's 71, because we do still have some flood warnings in effect. The Skywatch Storm Tracker keeps all of the rain down to the south, and then it kind of takes a little turn through the southeastern portion of the United States and makes its way to the mid-Atlantic. But here throughout most of the Midwest, because of that aforementioned barometer on the rise, it is absolutely gorgeous. Let's talk about our flood warnings that still exist. We've got the one for the Neosho River that goes from the Kansas state line all the way down through Commerce and Miami. That still lasts until Sunday. But our key fact for today is that earlier the flood warning extended from Parsons through Oswego down to Miami and Commerce. So that shows you the river beginning to recede as those flood warnings have now been lifted. Like I said, I want to talk a little bit about Nevada and Vernon County, Missouri, because that flood warning for the Marmonton, specifically, it does last until Sunday. And then we still have a county-wide flood warning for Allen County. Hopefully we can let this thing expire at noon. When we talk about severe thunderstorm activity, you'll notice we've carved out a nice little niche as we head into the weekend. Also, too, of note, just because we haven't had a chance to talk about her that much, that is Tropical Storm Elsa that has now become a Category 1 hurricane. The chain of islands that you see right there, known as the Lesser Antilles, they will be just in the scope of Elsa because she does no signs of slowing down. As a matter of fact, if we were to look at Elsa's forecast track, you'll notice she wants to stay at Category 1, clip the Dominican and Cuba, and possibly even become a Category 2 by the time it hits Cuba. We don't think we have any problems here because it's going to have to traverse over so much landfall by the time it gets to us, but we will be talking a little bit about Elsa next week especially. Let's talk about the end of this week and the weekend. Temperatures in the mid-80s today, and as we head toward the extended holiday weekend, whether you have today off or maybe you have Monday off, you are in luck because our temperatures are going to be about 3 to 4 degrees below normal for this time of year. It's going to be warm, it's going to be sunny, and when the fireworks begin to go off, we're going to be sitting around 70 degrees each and every night.
All right, here's a look at what's happening today. The Trump Organization and its longtime finance chief, Ellen Weisselberg, are under indictment in New York. Prosecutors say that for about a decade and a half, the Trump Organization paid top executives off the books. They allege that Weisselberg avoided paying taxes on $1.7 million, using company money for apartments, private school tuition, and luxury cars. Weisselberg pleaded not guilty. Former President Trump is not charged. Rescue efforts resume at the partially collapsed condo site in Surfside, Florida. The search was halted for more than 15 hours yesterday over safety concerns. President Biden visited Surfside, meeting with first responders, survivors, and victims' family members. The National Weather Service says excessive and dangerous heat is forecast to continue across interior sections of the Northwest through the 4th of July weekend. Record-breaking heat has killed dozens of people in Washington state and Oregon and hundreds in British Columbia.
Good morning. We will be back with more news and weather when we see you at noon.
Have a great morning, an even better day, and an awesome 4th of July weekend.